Hey, I have a question. Why is it the guys who have Tourettes never say Beetlejuice 3 times or Candyman 5 times in the mirror in the dark in the bathroom? Exactly.
So John Davidson has released what appears to be an attempt to address his offensive slurs at the BAFTA without actually addressing it. Because what is this? This is not an apology. This has to be one of the whitest non-apology on racism to date. But are we allowed to talk about it? Am I allowed to talk about it? Because you guys have been at me all day with, oh my God, you're being ableist. Are we allowed to talk about it? Can we break it down? Or we're not allowed to because we must show compassion?
So recently at the BAFTA Awards, which is one of these Hollywood award shows that I absolutely never heard of, there was a bit of a controversy that in reality should be a non-controversy when Michael B. Jordan and another individual took to the stage in order to present an award, and you could actually hear over the broadcast somebody saying the N-word from the crowd. Now, of course, this caused a lot of shock and dismay by the general population. Now, of course, they weren't actually watching this award show because nobody was watching this award show, so it was actually the clips that ended up going viral that caused this shock and dismay, and part of the reason why this in isolation made so many people angry is because networks like the BBC specifically cut out other information and other people speaking where other things were shouted out so that everybody could focus on the N-word being hurled. And the reason why this is so evil and deceptive is because there was an individual called John Davidson who was present at this particular event because he was there to promote a film that is based on him called I Swear, that talks about people who suffer from Tourette's and that specific form of Tourette's where you end up hurling out random phrases at inappropriate times. So this is actually what was happening right here. There was nothing evil, white, and racist about it. So obviously normal, sane, rational people came to the forefront and they said, look, guys, he has a condition. In fact, there was quite literally a movie about his condition that explains this in excruciating detail. So we're going to just leave this alone, not make a big deal out of it. No, of course that's not what happened. I'm totally kidding. All these different black people have decided to go after and essentially want to kill this individual based on the fact that he has a condition. That condition ended up flaring up. And by the way, he was only there to promote more awareness about said condition. The ultimate monkey's paw wish for this individual, because it turns out Black America, especially some on social media, are not quite ready to extend any sympathy at all whatsoever as long as they hear that no word, and this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
My reaction would have been cracker, just because. I just don't know why. I just know I would have been like, cracker. That's
fight fire with fire.
I just can't help it. Maybe I got coprolalia too. I don't know. Okay? Now, the reason I'm giving the BAFTA Film Awards, okay, to host Alan Cumming and all the handlers of John Davidson Donkey is because the reality is he shouldn't have been in the room. If a person has a condition that makes him scream out inappropriate, obscene, or taboo words, why risk having him in the room?
So I absolutely love this take from Charlemagne because it shows what a complete and utter weak bitch that he actually is. Because again, this is somebody who plays woke all the time, who advocates for the disabled when it's convenient for him. But since this individual who has Tourette's, who's obviously not in control of what he's saying, said a no bad word, Charlemagne is taking the position that essentially he should not be allowed and permitted in public. This is essentially the equivalent of saying that if you're in a wheelchair and you can't walk, well, you better figure out a way to get your ass up the stairs because we're not building a ramp for you, while at the same time he's trying to pretend to be more woke than everyone else because again, he's pretending to be offended by this word that he uses all the time. But since a white person said it, since it was hurled and it was audible on television from a white individual, suddenly it's a major problem. Suddenly it's a major issue. So there's a 4-minute rant from this absolute weasel, this absolute coward, where he's talking about how disabled people who are quite literally there to promote a movie about them being disabled and about how this has negative impacts on people like this's life are not actually welcome in public. They need to be barred from this because you know what? Tolerance only extends so far and black people are the ultimate ultimate victims. Now, I want to be 100% clear to everybody out there in the audience that regular, ordinary black people, when you explain to them that this guy has Tourette's, are probably not going to react this way. It is only the ultra woke Hollywood elite, these kind of people on social media who think black victimization takes precedent over absolutely everything, that have decided to take it this far, are issuing threats against this individual and doing all sorts of crazy, ridiculous posts about how, oh, he definitely said this at this moment in time because 100% he's filled with evil white racism. Again, ignoring the context that while other people were speaking, like women in particular, he was saying shut up B, calling them hulas, and all sorts of other things that again are tied to this particular scenario.
I was in the audience at the BAFTAs when John Davidson said the M-word in front of Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan, and I just want to add in my 2 cents as someone who was at the ceremony from start to finish and witnessed everything that you do not see on TV. Now, I want to give some context that John had clearly been experiencing kind of quite intense tics all evening. You could hear them from even the kind of pre-show stuff when we'd all sat down, and they go through kind of like a bit of a ramble being like, by the way, make sure you do this, please don't do this, da-da-da. You don't see that on TV. He was experiencing verbal tics all throughout that. He had been experiencing them all throughout until that moment. Alan Cumming actually came on stage to address the audience. I don't know if this part was aired on TV right at the beginning of the show, but he did address us, at least in the room, and just said, by the way, John is in the audience, he has Tourette's. There's a wonderful film, I swear, that you can go and watch if you want to understand more about Tourette's, but this is how Tourette's shows up for some people, so if you hear him experiencing verbal tics, that's why. So everyone in the audience kind of had this mutual understanding that, you know, we have someone in the audience that experiences verbal tics, that has Tourette's syndrome, and that is why we are hearing kind of occasional words and phrases being shouted out.
And by the way, this guy has actually received an award from the Queen of England when she was alive, and during that particular award ceremony, he said F the Queen to her face. Yet the Queen of England understood because he had Tourette's. He actually met a woman who had cancer, and he told that woman, first thing, again, due to his Tourette's, you're going to effing die, and that woman understood that because, again, he had Tourette's. He's been all these different scenarios where this has negatively impacted his life, including the discovery of a friend who was in fact dead, calling the police to get them to show up to the scene, and him saying that he killed that friend when the police showed up to the scene due to the fact that, again, he is not in control of what he was saying. If in every one of those scenarios it was his Tourette's, what would lead you to believe that in this particular scenario, because the victims were innocent Baba Angel black celebrities who are multimillionaires who have heard and used this word multiple times, that in this particular case, he actually meant it, and therefore he deserves to be punished. And by the way, this guy actually ended up leaving the award ceremony because people were so offended by the use of the N-word, even in this context, that he did not feel welcome. And again, he was only at said ceremony to promote his movie that was specifically related to Tourette's and the consequences. And now you have all these different various lefties that are demanding an apology, which is even more hilarious and absurd because guess what? One of the most iconic scenes from the movie is this one right here that I'll play for you.
Dory's going to concert! Sorry, Dory. Sorry, everyone.
Right, John. If you're going to visit us more often, which, you know, I hope you are, I need to speak to you about your language. We have one rule in this house, and that's if you do anything you can't help, you never, ever have to apologise for it. You know, if you're out in the street and, you know, with people who don't understand you, then fine, you know, apologise, whatever. But in this house, where we know you can't help it, you know, where we know you don't mean it, well, it all means diddly squat. You don't need to apologise. Okay?
Aye, okay. Thank you.
Great.
Now, this one appears to be a joke post, but it's actually really funny because it says, if I had Tourette's, my tics would be shouting, quote-unquote, trans rights, quote-unquote, vote, and quote-unquote, Black Lives Matter because I'm a good effing person. Now, look, I want to laugh at this particular post because it is, in fact, hilarious, but the thing is, you cannot parody the left because they are actually beyond parody, and what you end up seeing all over social media is post after post after post about how he should redirect his Tourette's and this special variant of it in order to say proper and good things in a serious way. So while this account is being funny, while they're making jokes about this particular scenario, the fact is a bunch of other accounts all over social media are doing anything but joking. In fact, Jamie Foxx, the actor, ended up calling this guy a racist, which led to a bunch of people replying and saying that Jamie Foxx is lazy because he had a stroke, and during the time that he was recovering from that stroke, he was in a coma, therefore he just didn't want to get up out of bed. And you've seen similar posts and similar jokes about Christopher Reeve appearing at an award show, being in a wheelchair during the award show, and people saying, why didn't he just get over his condition and get up when everybody else was giving a standing ovation? Again, this is all the obvious jokes that you can make, but nothing is beyond the black activists, and nothing is beyond their self-centered victim narrative, their main character syndrome. So we have a bunch of different posts where people are talking about how this should have went differently, or this guy should be punished, or actually it's evil white racism, and it's absolutely pathetic in every possible way. So this is a post that's going viral. It has 56,000 likes and 1 million views, 12.1 thousand reposts at the time that I'm reading it, and it says, not a fan of how black people are always expected to extend grace and be the bigger people when the world never shows us the same energy. Look, like I said, there are a lot of regular, ordinary, normal black people who, when you have Tourette's and this particular condition explained to them, understand what is going on, and they don't need to go out of their way to be offensive. But let us be 100% clear about this. The myth that black people are expected to extend grace beyond what other people do is absolutely ass backwards and absurd, because in reality, if any other person, any other group member were offended by this guy's condition, they would be the ones being attacked right now. It is only black people with the soft bigotry of no expectations that we are expected to somehow pretend that their opinion on this situation is valid, because, oh my god, isn't it hard being an evil white racism victim? Everything in America is evil white racism, therefore they can bully a disabled person who was quite literally there for the sole purpose of raising awareness about said disability due to the fact that people are completely ignorant on it, and we're gonna say, you know what, 50-50, and honestly 60-40 in favor of the black people that are going out of their way to ignore reality to be offended by this. Again, no other group of people at all whatsoever would be extended the grace that black people are being extended right now, where they're being excused for attacking this guy over and over again, even though we all know and understand that it's unjustified. Everybody gets what is going on right here, but we have to pretend like these feelings are valid from all these people who heard about the controversy, decided to look it up, decided to ignore it, are directly contradicting what this condition absolutely is in order to be offended by it, and their feelings are being prioritized, which is ridiculous and absurd. So this post, completely backwards, asinine, and ridiculous. Anybody who thinks that black people have some special expectations, that's absurd. What we are seeing right now is the complete and utter lack of expectations. Again, you have this tweet from Dr. Allison Witz, and it says, notice how all black people, notice how black is capitalized, by the way, wanted was an apology, and yet they're being called ableist for feeling offended. So look, maybe people on the left are using terms like ableist in order to describe people like this, but I'm not doing that. What I'm calling you is stupid, ignorant, willfully ignorant, somebody with main character syndrome who believes that your feelings trump absolutely everything, and somebody with a disability needs to apologize to you. Again, this is like asking somebody with no arms to apologize for not opening the door. Now, of course, we also have other posts where people are promising violence if they ever encounter somebody with Tourette's that says the N-word, which is, again, pathetic in every possible way, and akin to punching somebody in the face who's in a wheelchair because they won't get up out of said wheelchair. Now, to be clear, it is not every single black person that is on this train, although somebody is sharing these posts, somebody's engaging with this material, likely Indian or Pakistani bots, and of course, some really stupid, ignorant people. But one of the co-stars of the film I Swear, somebody who actually represented this guy, or he's playing a guy who represented this guy in a movie, actually came out to defend him. He did so in a great way, and I think that is absolutely wonderful. So you gotta give credit where credit is due, because typically what the internet does is bring up the most outrageous, stupid people, puts them in your your face so that you can react. But make no mistake about it, there are definitely people, and people in high profile positions, that are absolutely feeding this. But let us hear from the actor that actually worked on this movie and what he thinks about this controversy.
I'm one of the actors in I Swear. I play John Davidson's lawyer. And if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. In the scene, I'm representing him because he's just got into trouble. And I'm representing him, but at the same time, he's hurling abuse at me. And it's very offensive words. Now, this is the condition, the disease of Tourette's syndrome. John cannot control what he says. In fact, that's the whole point of why we're making this film. We've made this film, I Swear, is to educate people about Tourette's syndrome. And how can you say that he can't be there at the awards? This is a film about his life. This is a film about him. Absolutely, he has to be there. And absolutely, it's great that he was there. And I don't know if some of the actors there were told in advance about someone with Tourette's being there. Hopefully, they would have been told, therefore prepared for that kind of stuff that happened. Regardless, John has Tourette's. Enough said.
Again, credit where credit is due, because this guy is getting a lot of heat for backing up the person that the movie that he starred in is actually based on, and I actually do appreciate him sticking his neck out in this clear and obvious situation where there's a clear and obvious morally correct answer. And again, if you are a black person who is offended by the N-word, at least understand that context matters. I mean, come on. If this word is utilized among black people talking to each other in music, pop culture, movies, and whatnot all the time, then you have to understand conceptually that context matters. Certain people in your mind can say it and certain people can't. And I would think it should be obvious that if somebody has this variant of Tourette's where they're shooting out random phrases at the most inappropriate times, again, even in a scenario where they find a dead body and they're actually admitting to killing said person, said dead body, to their own detriment, which is what happened to this guy in real life, then at some point you would say, okay, you know what? My temporary feelings about this syllable that honestly I don't even really genuinely feel, I've been primed to feel that against this person that I never heard of until this viral clip came out or until I saw this in somebody else's social media post. Let me subordinate that for the moment, for the time being, and actually focus on, if there are any, real instances of evil white racism. But the thing is, very often what we find out is that the supply of racism nowhere meets the demand, so you have pathetic people like Charlemagne, all the different various actors and activists on social media who decided to go after this individual, trying to manufacture and just gobble up whatever they have in order to feed their need to be victims, and that's absolutely pathetic. So yeah, I feel absolutely terrible for this guy, but I'm not even remotely surprised that the activist class has decided that black victimization takes precedent over somebody with a literal disability. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about black activists going crazy on a disabled person. Till next time.